There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known by ordinary readers. It is a dimension as vast as history and as complex as human error. It is the middle ground between paper and page, between intention and accident, and it lies between the pit of printers' anxiety and the summit of their ambition. This is the dimension of discovery. It is an area which we call the bibliographic zone. In our previous video, we talked about interpolations and cancels in the dreaded parenthesis. In this video, we have to talk about the statement of signing. We have one last area to talk about, the dollar sign. The dollar sign stands for all the signatures, and it tells us what has been signed. Many bibliographers don't include this information, but it's good to know nonetheless, just in case you run into a particularly vicious formula. Remember, each gathering in a book would be labeled with a specific symbol, typically, but not always, a letter from the printer's alphabet. The gathering symbol would be printed in the bottom of some of the leaves in the gathering. We call adding these symbols to the gatherings signing the gatherings. The labels are called signature marks. The purpose of the signature marks was to make sure that the binder was folding things properly. They could rifle through the folded document to make sure everything was in the right order. But the thing is, you don't need to label every single leaf to make sure that things are going in the right order. Typically, printers would only label one leaf past the first half of the gatherings, because if 5 out of 8 leaves are in the right order, you can't get 6, 7, and 8 in the wrong order. In a signing statement, bibliographers are telling you what has been signed in the book. $3 means that the first 3 leaves of each gathering have been signed. We're probably dealing with a quarto here, half of 4 plus 1, but don't jump to conclusions. Naturally, things aren't always going to be that straightforward. Sometimes, a printer won't sign in a regular pattern. When that's the case, the bibliographer will try to identify a pattern that they feel is consistent, and then note all the exceptions. Here, we again have the first 3 leaves of each gathering signed, but leaves D5 and G4 have also been signed, and leaves A1 and A2 are not signed. That could be a clue to a number of quirks in the production of the book. Sometimes a printer will make a mistake in the signing and missign a leaf or an entire gathering. If it's clear that what happened was a mistake, because the intended sequence is obvious, then the bibliographer will simply note the error in the signing statement. Here, we've got a book where the first 5 leaves in each gathering are signed, except for A1. The gathering F has been signed as though it were gathering E. F1 is signed E1, F2 is signed E2, F3 is signed E3, and so on. And leaf G2 has been signed as G3. This is different from gatherings that aren't signed at all or have duplicate signings from others. For those, bibliographers will use our old friends pi and chi again. Remember, pi and chi are used when the intended sequence is unclear. In the first formula, there's an extra unsigned gathering between D and E. And in the second one, there are 2 gatherings signed D and a gathering signed E. But in the third, there has just been a mistake in signing. An uncautious bibliographer may jump to conclusions about the format of a book based on the statement of signing. Don't do it! A printer may have their own opinions about how many of their leaves they should be signing. Always check the statement of the format at the start of the formula. So let's recap. Format is signified by the information before the colon. The information after the colon tells us what the gatherings were signed as and how many leaves each of them has. Letters in italics tell us that something hasn't been signed, but should have been to complete the sequence. The Greek letters pi and chi let us know that something is disrupting the sequence. The statement of signing comes after the gatherings and tells us which leaves have been signed, as well as any deviations from that pattern. Things can get more complicated, because things can always get more complicated, but those are the ground rules. If you find a collational formula in a reference work that doesn't make sense, it's possible that the bibliographer has changed the rules slightly to suit their own purposes. You should now check the introduction to their work and see how they've explained it there. And that wraps up our video series. I hope that you feel a little less nervous about collational formulas, and that if you encounter one lurking in one of your books, you now will be able to cope with it. As always, stay safe out there.